My name is McKenna Blue, and I chose to focus on the 2020 presidential debates, aka the train wreck, for our current affairs assignment. So please enjoy.
Because I think we need to just pause for a moment and say, that was crazy. What was that?
It was a train wreck, but it was a train wreck of the making of one person. I mean, we know who did it. President Trump did this, and in some ways, it's the only way he knows what to do. He bulldozed over the moderator, he bulldozed over Chris Wallace, bulldozed and at times flustered Joe Biden. But I don't know if anybody wouldn't have been flustered by the president's behavior and the president's performance. It was a pure train wreck. I don't know how that helped anybody. If you were watching this as an undecided voter, I don't know if it helped at all. I don't know what you learned.
Well, did you stay on the channel? I got a lot of texts from people saying I turned it off.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of those comments too, both from true outsiders and from friends and family. A lot of people seem to turn this one off. I go back, I'm trying to figure out, and I'm trying to find, okay, did this politically help anybody? I will say this, Joe Biden's campaign has been trying to make the case, essentially, that President Trump is a fraud, a bully, and has no plans. That was one thing that seemed to get through, I think, at times, and certainly President Trump played the role of the bully quite well. The Trump campaign has been trying to paint Joe Biden as out of it and captive of the left. I think his folks are going to think that the president scored some points here or there. But I'm looking at it. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and feel perhaps a tad empathetic for anybody that had to participate in this.
So this is basically the argument that Chuck is making. His premise is that Trump bulldozed and flustered both the moderator and his opponent. And his conclusion was that the debate is a train wreck, obviously because of Trump. So the unstated premise here, this is not what was said, but this is what is implied that we are, as the audience, are supposed to pick up, is that, according to Chuck, bulldozing and flustering means the debate is a train wreck. So this would be considered a deductive argument because the conclusion is true based on Chuck's definition of what the premise is and based on the unstated premise. So we also see use of the self-selection fallacy. When Chuck says, I don't know that anybody wouldn't have been flustered by the president's behavior, and when he says, I don't know if it helped anybody, and he also makes the claim that some unspecified others, including family and friends, weren't even able to watch the debates due to what was happening. So basically what we're seeing here is that there's no actual proof of who this audience is. It's generalized from a self-selected sample. This is a small group of people that Chuck knows who probably share the same or similar political values that he does. It's an inaccurate representation of the entire audience who watched the debate, and it's a skewed sample. It's not going to actually show us, like a poll numbers would, of what the general audience believed. It's just going to show us what a small portion of the community believed that tend to share most likely the same beliefs as Chuck. Therefore, it's not very reliable. Rhetoric of demagoguery is essentially a fanaticism. It's pushing extreme views. And so even though in the past we've seen this associated with leaders like Hitler or Stalin, it basically is just otherizing. It's polarizing. It's us versus them. And Chuck's entire purpose of this interview is to say Trump did this. The blame belongs to Trump. He's bad. We don't like him. He isn't us, and we're better, right? And it stimulates basically just fear, resentment, and hatred. It's not fact-oriented. It's not based in reality. It's simply just a tactic to be anti-Trump and to get others to get on board with his claims. So Chuck also asked a loaded question. He said, did this politically help anybody? And this could mean so many things. A loaded question rests on unstated assumptions, and it implies usually a negative conclusion, and it also can be considered an innuendo. So the negative conclusion that Chuck is implying is that it didn't help anybody. It's a loaded question because Chuck wants the viewer to kind of be intellectually stimulated, but really just to think about his point of view. He wants us to feel maybe stupid if we agree with the other side. He's really just trying to catch our attention. He's not actually asking us if it helps anybody. He's not giving us any premises. He's not giving us any idea of why it might not help anyone. He's simply stating that most likely it did not. So argument ad hominem is one of the most common logical fallacies. So when Chuck brings up that the Biden campaign stated that Trump is a fraud, a bully, and has no plans, he is dismissing the person and not the position. In no way is he reviewing anything that Trump has said. He's not reviewing any of the policies that Trump's put out. He's literally, the goal is just to undermine his opponent. So he's distracting from the actual issue. And again, this is just to push his view on the audience. It has no substantial evidence. It has no substantial claims. It literally just is to give this negative light to our president. And so it really has no place in a quality argument. So I feel as though this argument, if you can even call it that, fits this concept for this project, because really it's just 100% bias. It's based out of emotion and there is purpose behind it, but that purpose is purely to incite more hatred towards Trump and to cause a larger divide. It's not to inform the viewer. It's not to give them a better idea of what happened at the debate or to give them a recap. It's purely emotional. He uses so many other devices such as ridicule, hyperbole, appeal to emotion. It's not by any means a substantial argument that uses facts or that is based in reality. It's pure emotion. And this is 100% on purpose. There's no accident here. It's not just him ranting and, not really thinking about it. There is definitely an intentional or intentionality behind it, and it's to sway the viewer. Personally, no, I'm not convinced by this argument, and it has nothing to do with my political beliefs, to be totally honest. I think it just was not well constructed. I think that there really wasn't anything substantial to what he had to say, and like we kind of stated before, I think it was purely emotional and just sort of out of rage and anger towards the conservative side. I think his entire goal is pushing the liberal agenda. And so if I were to watch this as an unbiased viewer, I think that I would have a completely skewed view of the conservative agenda based on this one interview or this one argument. So I appreciate you listening to my presentation, and I hope that it was helpful. Thank you.